What's up everyone, this is the 179 Bob Killer, and today I'm bringing you another school project. But instead of discussing how anime demonstrates the process of learning, I'll be analyzing all of the visual film elements that were used to create some of my favorite scenes in Madoka Magica. I truly believe that this anime is a visual masterpiece, and I hope that this video can help you understand why. I've been super excited to make this video, so without further ado, let's jump right into this. Also, don't watch this video if you haven't seen Madoka Magica yet. I'll be discussing major spoilers. So I'm assuming that if you've made it this far, that means you have either watched Madoka Magica or just don't care about spoilers. Or you're one of my teachers. Please give me an A. So with that in mind, I'll give a very brief summary of what Madoka Magica is. Madoka is a middle school girl who lives a happy, carefree life with her friends, all of which is uprooted with the introduction of a new transfer student that has an odd interest in her. Madoka and her best friend Sayaka find out that this mysterious transfer student is a magical girl named Homura. Madoka is then thrust into the extremely dark and brutal world of magical girls, where for the rest of the show, she must ponder over a decision on whether to become a magical girl or not. There's also this mystical cat-like creature called Kyubey. He's basically the thing that turns people into magical girls in exchange for granting them a wish. Now that we have that taken care of, let's jump right into the first scene, which also happens to be the very first scene of the show. This scene opens up with a black and white checkered road that is twisted in the shape of a spiral. The road is winding into a very dark and ominous looking center. The center is surrounded by lots of lines that almost look like spikes, implying that to enter it will cause pain. The sharp contrast of these straight spikes and the smooth road creates a sense of uneasiness for we, the viewer, who just so happen to be drifting closer and closer. You can also see some sort of brightness on the outer edges of the shot. This brightness quickly dissipates as you near the center, symbolizing the direction that the show will be heading in. We can also hear a low humming sound throughout the entire opening scene. This low humming also contributes to the fear and uneasiness within the viewer. As the scene continues, we both hear and see a girl running on this checkered road. This girl, of course, is our main character, Madoka. The environment that she's in doesn't resemble anything that we commonly see, giving off the feeling that we, the viewer, along with Madoka, are not in what we perceive to be reality. The primary sounds during this scene are the heavy breathing and echoing footsteps of Madoka as she runs. Her breaths are quick and sharp, creating feelings of anxiousness and urgency for the viewer. The echoing of her footsteps also signals to us that she is alone. We begin to ask questions in our minds like, why is she running? Or is she in danger? When Madoka is introduced, we are also only shown her legs from behind. This is a tactic that directors would use to give off the sense that the character is being pursued. In this case, Madoka is actually being pursued by us, the viewer. The camera is trailing behind her but is starting to catch up. This camera motion further enforces the feelings of anxiousness and urgency from before. We are eventually introduced to a top-down wide shot of Madoka as she runs through a room filled with tons of spinning circles with very detailed and elaborate designs. Upon closer inspection, these circles actually resemble gears. In this case, they are the gears of time, representing the abilities of one of the pivotal characters in the show and her interference with the current world we are viewing. Madoka is also extremely small in this shot, further representing the fact that she is alone. Next, we continue the pursuit of Madoka as the camera finally catches up to her. In this shot, we see the upper half of her body before the camera accelerates into the back of her head. This scene then cuts to a side shot of Madoka running through a hallway with tons of jagged lines. This shot looks chaotic and upsetting, which further drives the feelings of anxiousness and urgency from before. One line in particular seems to obstruct our view of Madoka's face for most of the shot. When a character's face is obstructed, it's meant to make the viewer uncomfortable. This is because we can't identify the character's intentions. This isn't the only time that Madoka's face is obstructed. Later on, we have an extreme close-up that cuts off the top half of her face, but we'll get to that in a second. In the next shot, we see Madoka entering a massive room. The camera is in a wide shot that's looking down on her, again driving home the fact that she is alone in this odd place. We then get a hip-level shot of Madoka that is tilted up to allow us to see the ceiling. It's a mess of more checkered patterns on what appears to be fences and other types of scaffolding. This all creates the sensation that Madoka is caged in by something. This subtle introduction of man-made materials preps us for the upcoming shot of a neon green exit sign. Apart from the word on the sign, this new introduction of color drives home the fact that Madoka is now close to entering what we are to assume would be reality. We arrive back at the close-up shot of Madoka's face, still making us feel uncomfortable, but also breaking the urgency of the scene as Madoka tilts her head up at the sight of her destination. Madoka then calmly walks up the stairs towards the exit. The camera zooms in on her legs once more to build anticipation in the scene. When she arrives at the top of the stairs, she appears to be caged in by 3 beams, but walks out of the perceived cage. This further shows how she is about to leave whatever place she is in. The last moments of the scene show a quick glimpse of the outside reality in the form of skyscrapers, but their windows are reflecting giant floating objects that appear to be fragments of other buildings. This immediately tells us that something is wrong. And sure enough, through a literal doorway back to reality, Madoka finds herself stranded at the top of a massive tree as a supernatural force known as a witch reaps havoc in the city. This is the first time that we properly see Madoka's full face, which is extremely impactful given that her expression is immediately one of shock. Paired with this shock, we hear an intense song begin to play, prepping us for the action that will take place in the next scene. The camera zooms out to show just how helpless Madoka is in this situation before showing 2 close-ups of the massive witch that is attacking. This scene ends with a shot that is looking up at the witch as it looms over the city. This angle looking up makes the witch look more powerful and frightening. Behind the witch, we can see a slightly colorful array of moving shapes, symbolizing its magical abilities. On the other hand, its silhouette is almost completely darkened to show its sinister nature. Due to its length, I'm choosing to start my analysis of this scene with a close-up of Mami's face. She is in the midst of a battle with a powerful witch, yet she dons an endearing smile as she looks over at Madoka and her friend Sayaka. For those that don't know, Mami largely represents the idea of hope in the series, and is a large role model for Madoka. In this close-up, we can see that her face is slightly tinted pink, not only to match the bright background, but also to show her warm and affectionate nature. Her facial expression also tells us that she is relaxed. Even though she's in a battle, she's confident and doesn't mind taking the time to look at her friend. This scene is also backed by an upbeat soundtrack that connects all of the shots with a driving feeling of movement. We then get a POV shot from the witch's perspective as it glares down at Mami, who is smirking at her perceived victory. This camera placement is very important because an angle looking down symbolizes power and control. In this case, even though we are meant to believe that Mami is about to win the battle, the camera angle hints that the witch is still in control of the situation. This is reinforced in the following shot that also features the witch looking down on Mami. But this time, we also see the back of the witch. There's a face on its back, telling us that there is another side to this witch both figuratively and literally. Up until this point, the witch has appeared to have been outmatched by Mammy, but that is about to change. It's also important to note the environment that Mammy is fighting in. There is candy and other types of sweets everywhere. Even the entire backdrop is designed like ice cream with chocolate sauce dripping down the walls. This choice of environment is intentionally misleading. It appears to be happy and fun, a place out of a kid's dream. But we know that this is actually a witch's domain. One could decipher from the background alone that a sinister twist is about to occur. We get a quick couple of shots that feature Mammy using her signature finishing move. The first one has the camera angle at ground level, looking up at Mammy. This camera position makes Mammy appear powerful, and her massive weapon doesn't even fully fit into the screen, further showing how powerful she really is. We see Mammy's strike hit, and the witch's true form starts to reveal itself. We also get a clear backdrop of the ceiling. The chocolate sauce now looks more like blood slowly oozing down the walls. We get a quick close-up of Mammy's face, showing her almost disbelief at the situation unfolding in front of her. The next shot features the witch in its true form, zooming down at Mammy at incredible speed. So fast that if you are looking closely, you can see Mammy herself take a step back as it nears her. The music is now completely overshadowed by a powerful sweeping noise as the witch swoops down. This overbearing sound effect, coupled with the sheer size of the witch on screen, represents the immense power that this witch truly possesses. The camera is also positioned behind Mammy, looking up at the witch. This again is symbolic of the power dynamics between the two characters. Next, we get a shot of the witch closing in on Mammy, preparing to take a bite of her. Again, the size of the witch compared to Mammy really drives home the power difference between these characters. Mammy is also depicted as leaning back when the witch is shown moving closer, confirming that Mammy has been taken completely off guard and is now in serious danger. The witch slowly moves closer to Mammy as it opens its mouth. This change in speed from the previous scene provides a sense of whiplash for us. The slowness of the scene grants the viewers a chance to process what has just happened, while also allowing time for suspense to build up inside of us. We then get a POV shot of the witch's mouth as its jaws open wide around Mammy. We are looking down at her, symbolizing her complete loss of power and control. Her facial expression is very clear in this shot. Her eyes are open wide as she stares into the witch's mouth. In this exact moment, both Mammy and the viewer know that she is about to die. Even the soundtrack changes to a woman's ominous singing, placing us on edge. We then get two very quick close-ups of Madoka and Sayaka, both completely terrified at what is unfolding in front of them. Heavy shadows cover large portions of their faces, symbolic of the darkness that they are about to be witnessing. From a bird's eye view, we see this massive witch clamp down on Mammy. At that exact moment, we hear the click of a lock being opened. We cut to Homura, a character that Mammy had used her magic powers on to tie her up with ribbon earlier. The ribbons start to fade away as Homura is released to the ground. The ribbons fading away is an extremely heavy implication that Mammy has just been killed, severing her hold on her magic. The background here is also dark and unsettling. It uses a heavy focus on black, a color that is often synonymous with death. We see Homura holding Mammy's ribbon as it disintegrates. The camera changes to an angle that makes the ribbon appear to be blood draining through her fingers, further representing that a death had just taken place. In the next shot, we see Mammy from the neck down, suspended in air. This tells the viewer that she is only being held up by the witch who has just bitten her head. She transforms back from her magical girl outfit to her normal everyday clothing before falling. This is symbolic of the last bit of life that she has leaving her body. Also timed with the transformation, the background flips to negative colors, changing the vibe for the rest of the scene. No longer do things appear warm and hopeful. The dark and cold colors in the background now represent despair. Mami's body falls as the witch animalistically swoops down to finish eating. We no longer hear any music in this scene, just the sounds of the witch eating. Lastly, we get 2 more close-ups of Madoka and Sayaka as they helplessly watch their friend being devoured. The colors of their faces are drained, making them look almost ghostly white compared to before. This color change also represents the impact that Mami's death will have on these characters for the rest of the anime. With the character that symbolically represented hope now gone, the show is making a huge statement in the direction that it will be heading in. The last scene we'll be discussing today is actually one of my favorite scenes. For context, in the previous scene she was in, it's heavily implied that Sayaka just murdered 2 people in a fit of rage over the disgusting things that they were saying. We see her sitting alone at the train station, staring down at her feet. This body position immediately tells us that she's upset. Even her position in the shot is deliberately in the bottom corner, reinforcing the fact that she's feeling down and demoralized. But when you apply the context of the previous scene, we, the viewer, don't actually know if she is sad or having a complete mental breakdown. Her face is not shown, giving us that too familiar sense of uncomfortability that the series loves to hand us. The environment that she's in is almost completely black, only illuminated by the harsh lights of the city. Next, we hear and see Kyoko, a girl that hasn't necessarily gotten along with Sayaka in the past, running up the stairs. She stumbles slightly while making loud stomps with each step. We can infer from this that she was running all over the city in an attempt to find Sayaka. This implies that even though they've had their falling outs, Kyoko still deeply cares about Sayaka and her well-being. The background city artwork also strongly resembles a grief seed, the item that witches drop once they are killed. This is very clever foreshadowing for what is about to occur. Sayaka doesn't make any reaction to Kyoko, telling us that she is either deep in thought or too mentally drained to respond. Her face is still not shown, continuing the uncomfortable feeling that we are getting. The next shot appears to be from behind some sort of fence. Through the fence, we see Sayaka sitting alone. She is literally caged in by the bars of the fence, representing her isolation and despair. But Kyoko walks right into her cage, again symbolizing her willingness to help a friend.
あんたさ、いつまで強情張ってるわけ？悪いね。手間かけさせちゃって。なんだよ。らしくないじゃんかよ。
As the scene continues, we see Kyoko ripping off the lid of her chip container before eating. The quick and brash ripping of the lid parallels Kyoko's straightforward way of consulting Sayaka. Through her nonchalant demeanor alone, we can determine that Kyoko isn't exactly experienced with confronting others. As Sayaka's dialogue progresses, we return to the shot from behind the fence, which matches the tone of her words.
おい。希望と絶望のバランスは差し引きゼロだって。いつだったか、あんた言ってたよね。
This changes when we get a close-up of Sayaka's soul gem when she reveals it to Kyoko. Her gem is almost completely tainted black, quite literally representing the current state of her soul. Up until now, there has been no music, but in this moment, my favorite track of the entire anime starts to play. This song not only uses a whole orchestra of sounds to symbolize Sayaka's internal struggles within herself, but also directly connects to Sayaka's relationship with music as a whole. For music played a major role in her decision to become a magical girl in the first place. Next, we get an extreme close-up of Kyoko's face, showing just how shocked she is at this revelation. Her close-up is very in-your-face, no pun intended, and is extremely unsettling. This, coupled with the fact that it is instantly cut off, sets a sense of urgency for the scene. We, the viewer, are then placed in Kyoko's shoes, helplessly watching as things spiral out of control with Sayaka's demoralized words.
確かに私は何人か救いもしたけどさ。だけどその分、心には恨みや妬みが溜まって、一番大切な友達さえ傷つけて。さやか、あんたまさか。
The music swells as we get another close-up of Sayaka's soul gem, with her face cut off in the background. While we can only see her mouth, it is very clear that she is giving off somewhat of a smile. This abrupt clash of body language and the words that she's saying gives off the feeling that Sayaka is in a hysterical state. This heightens the urgency and tension for the viewer. Later, we get 2 more quick close-ups of Sayaka's mouth and watering eyes. A single teardrop begins to fall. Then we finally get a full shot of Sayaka's face. Her facial expression not only tells us that she's been crying, but also shows us that she's accepted despair completely. The teardrop shattering her soul gem is the precise moment that despair took over her soul. In this moment, we see quick flashes of things that represent Sayaka's personality and struggles. In rapid succession, we see a large amount of quick shots featuring the explosive and violent transformation that Sayaka is going through. The shots all being very chaotic and jumpy is a direct representation of the energy being released by this transformation. We find out later on that that energy released during the transformation process ends up being the whole purpose of Magical Girls existing. During the sequence, we also see the creation of a grief seed as Sayaka's physical body is blown away. The background starts to morph into what the viewer can recognize as a witch's labyrinth. And just in case the appearance of a grief seed and labyrinth didn't cause you to get the memo, we can faintly see Sayaka's new form as a witch before cutting to Kyoko grasping onto a rail as she calls out to her friend. That is all for today's video. As you can see, I really love Madoka Magica's film design, and I believe that these scenes provide a great representation of what this anime has to offer. That being said though, I understand that there are tons of other masterfully made scenes in this anime that I didn't get a chance to talk about. Please let me know which scene you think is the best, and if there are other scenes that you would like me to break down in the future. As always, if you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'll see you all in the next one.